Head over to BoardGamePrices.com to find the best price for Claim 2 and thousands of other games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Last year, a two-player trick-taking game out, designed by Scott Alms, called Claim. And this was an amazing game. I still don't think it's gotten the buzz it deserves. Well, now they've come out with a second one called Claim 2. Now, this is a sequel, a standalone game with all new factions to play with the two-player trick-taking game, but you can also mix it with the first. So let me show you how it plays. I'll see you on the other side. Now in this two-player trick-taking game, we have 5 suits, if you will, but each of them is a faction that has special abilities. This one's a troll, these ones are seers, giants, gnomes, and dragons. And so the game is played over 2 halves. Let's show you how it's played. Now over the course of the game, you're going to be winning cards from tricks, and you're going to be putting them in as a tableau in front of you like this, denoted by suit and or faction. At the end of the game, each faction that you have more cards won than the other player, you've won that faction, and you're trying to win at least 3 of those to win the game. Now the game is played over 2 halves. In the first half, you're going to be playing tricks to actually win cards that will be in your hand for the second half of the game where you actually will try to take points to win. So what happens is each player gets 13 cards, and there'll be a deck here. Now this deck will be sort of a draw deck. This will tell you which card you're actually fighting for this hand. So this is an 8 troll. That's a pretty good card. The different factions go up to different numbers, but most of them go up from 0 to 9. So what will happen is these 2 players will look through their hand, and one of them will lead, and just like normal trick taking, when a player leads, now they can lead with any suit. It doesn't have to have anything to do with the card that you're trying to win. They'll lead with a card. The other player, if they have this suit, they have to play it. So if this other player had a giant, they had to play it. But if they don't have a giant, they can play any suit, and the highest of the suit led will win. So in this case, this player had no giants. This player won. So what happens is this player gets to take this and put it off to a pile off to the side. These 2 cards will get discarded. The player who did not win gets this random card. Now they can look at it, but they don't show it to the other player. So this player knows that they have a 3 of a troll. This will go into their pile off to the side. Those cards that they're winning off to the side will be the ones they use in the second half of the game. Then a new card will come up, and look at this. Okay, so it's a 1. So the player that led, that won the trick will lead this one. So this player might lead with a 1 gnome. And let's say the other player, if they have a gnome, they have to play it. And let's say their lowest one is a 3. So they're kind of forced to take this giant, which is a 1. It's not a very strong giant. So again, they're going to put this in their pile, and these are going to get discarded. And this other player is going to get this secretly, and they go, oh, wow, I lost that one, but I actually got a good card. And they'll put this in it. Now this will continue till all 13 cards have been played, which means this entire draw deck will be empty, and all players will both have 13 cards to play the actual second half of the game. Now, even in the first half of the game, one of the factions has a special ability. Let's say this player leads with an 8 seer. This one plays a 4 seer because they could follow suit. Anytime you win a trick with a seer, you don't have to take the one that's up here. The player that wins the trick actually secretly looks at this card and then decides whether they take this one or this one. The player, then the other player takes the card that they didn't take. So the seer has a special ability in that first half of the game. All the other ones are very specific to the second half of the game, except for the dragons. Now, whether you follow suit or not, and whether you win or not, the last player to play a dragon in the trick gets to lead the next trick. Now, in the second half of the game, there's no draw deck because everyone just has the cards they're playing with. Now, let's say this player leads with a 3 gnome and the other player has to follow suit. They follow the one this player would win. They would take these 2 cards. Now, normally when you win cards, you'll place them in a tableau in front of you. The gnomes are a little different. They kind of stay out a little bit ahead of you, above your tableau. And this is because the gnomes are susceptible to the giants. Because let's say this player won the trick there. Let's say this player leads with a 3 giant, which would actually be a bad play. I'll show you why in a minute. Let's say this player plays the 9 of giants. This player is going to win the trick, but each of these giants have the opportunity to stomp on a gnome of an equal value. So this 3 would stomp on this 3, and this would get discarded out. So this player just has 1 less gnome. So the giants can stomp any of the gnomes when they're 1 on your opponent. Now the trolls work differently as well. Let's say someone leads with an 8, and the other player, let's just say they were playing this, they played a 1. Now, when you take the trolls, you can only take 1, you take the highest value. So the player that won this trick would take this 8 and put it in their tableau. This one would stay out here. Then when the next player plays a card, let's say that player that leads the next trick leads with a 9 seer, and the other player follows suit with a 2 seer. This player would win the trick. they would win these cards, but they'd win the troll, any one troll that's out there, the highest one. Sometimes you can stack up. There could be a bunch of trolls, so you can see how you can be winning trolls in multiple tricks if you're able to take those. Now, once both players have played the 13 rounds in that second half, any gnomes that weren't stomped would get added to your pile. You're going to look at each of your faction. Whichever factions you have more cards than the other player, you've won. If you win 3 or more factions, you've won the game. If you have the same amount of cards in a faction as someone else, whoever's the highest number between the 2 players has it. That's pretty much how you play. And a really huge part of this is Claim, the original game, came out last year, and you can actually mix it with Claim too. You can mix some of the factions together to customize your game, give it more replayability, but if you combine them both, you can now play with 3 or 4 players, which becomes a partnership game. It really adds to this, the whole thing of getting both of these together. All right, Claim 2. First of all, my review for the first one was huge. I just loved it. There's not a whole lot of 2-player trick-taking games out there. Fox in the Forest is a really good, solid one, but Claim 2 is probably my favorite. And I really, really, really loved that first one. And I don't think it gets quite enough hype, quite enough buzz. People aren't talking about it enough. If you like trick-taking games and 2 players, this is the best of the bunch. And I love this one too, equally as much. I like the fresh new factions. And so bringing that in, if you already know how to play the game, it's awesome. You just jump right in. The game plays exactly the same. It's just the factions do different things. For example, the Seer. Just like the Undead in the first one, they have one of the factions that does something in that first phase, which makes it interesting because it does change how things work when some of the factions work in the first half of the game and some of them work in the second half of the game. And I like that Seer where when you win, you actually get to choose which card, the one you can see or the one that you normally couldn't see. That's a really cool twist there. The Trolls. Stacking the trolls over multiple tricks is cool too, because if a couple of troll tricks get played in a row and both the cards are trolls, well, there's going to be a troll taken like every trick for the next 4 tricks, or 3 tricks at least. And that's really cool too, because you can throw that out, try to draw out a bunch, knowing that you might have a lot of powerful cards in another suit that the other player doesn't, that they're not going to be able to follow. And you can really try to, it's a good strategy to try to win trolls that way. It's just a cool little twist. The Gnomes and the Giants, these work together similarly but differently also, as sort of the Goblins and the Knights did in the first Claim game. Which is really cool when you get those gnomes, but they're not quite yours yet, but you can use giants to stomp them, and all the giants and the gnomes have basically the same odd values. And so that's a really cool thing working together. The dragons working in any phase, that's really cool too. This is the only faction out of both games where one of the factions does something the entire game, both phases, where if you play a dragon, you get the lead. And that's really cool too, because if someone's hammering you and winning a bunch of tricks on a suit that you can't follow, well, if you can't follow, play a dragon, take the lead and take it back. It's a really cool twist. It works really well. Also, hugely, you can combine that Claim 1 with this. And that is amazing because you can basically, select which factions you want to play with. It hugely ups the replayability. Now, granted, I've played the first one a lot, probably more than 50 times, and I'm not sick of it. But to even have a second one and then be able to mix them, that makes me very happy. Now, also when you combine this, you've got the 3-player or 4-player partnership game, and that's also awesome. Because now you can play this game with more people, and that's just really, really cool. Now this is going to be up there no matter how many players we have, 2 to 4. Now we can play this where before we could only play it with 2 players, so that really ups this hugely. Any negatives? Yes, same negative as I had with the first one. The card quality, now they are linen finish, which is nice, but the thickness of the cards is very thin. It's not very thick, so the cards bend very easily. It was my complaint with the first one. It's my complaint with this one. I haven't sleeved them yet. I don't know why, because it gets quite a bit of play. I probably need to invest in some sleeves in this game because the cards are very flimsy. So that's my only negative. But if you like trick-taking games, oh man, just get both. If you're asking which one to get, literally, they're not expensive games. I would definitely get both. If you can only get one, they're both equally awesome. Just pick the one of the factions that you think has the cooler abilities that you would like. But really, you should get both because it's awesome. Now, because I like this so much, of course, it's getting a saxophone serenade. Let's induct it into my gaming library. The overview in this video was shot on a Watson model Game Topper. Upgrade every game you play with the ultimate gaming accessory, Game Toppers, shipping now. Check them out at GameToppersLLC.com.